Hey, concerned parents and other taxpayers, remember when tax parasites at the National School Boards Association tried to label you as a potential terrorist threat in what seemed like a setup to get Biden's Attorney General to sic the FBI on you? Well, the NSBA got so much flack, they recanted. But Attorney General Garland, haha, shocker, he's still eager to use federal law enforcement to intimidate you in your town. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. You know, earlier this month, I was able to write about the left-dominated gaggle of tax-fed school board members at the National School Boards Association, NSBA, and how they sent a letter to Biden Attorney General Merrick Garland, signaling their groundless fear of parents who attend school board meetings. That letter seemed like it might be part of a prefabricated narrative to give Garland and the Bidenistas cover to sic the FBI on parents who might not like their tax money used by local schools to propagandize kids with things like cultural Marxism and, of course, its offshoot critical race theory, and maybe propagandize them with many other forms of ideological conformity. Well, mere days after receiving the letter, suddenly Merrick Garland announced that he was going to take action against these evil parents. But he didn't mention that his son-in-law is part of a corporation that makes money off pushing critical race theory in schools. And now, mere weeks after Garland pulled the legalistic trigger that sets in motion federal intimidation of parents and other taxpayers and uses taxes to do just that, the National School Boards Association suddenly has stepped back from their absurd letter. Veronica Kirilenko writes for The New American, quote, "The National School Boards Association Board of Directors issued an apology for the letter sent to President Biden in which it called on the administration to treat, quote, angry mobs, end quote, of parents opposing critical race theory, masking, and LGBTQ-related issues as domestic terrorists." The Department of Justice, however, continues to defend its subsequent memo that tasked the FBI to address the issue. See, now that cover's been thrown for Garland, now that he's set the Leviathan of the U.S. government into motion to chase concerned parents claiming that local disagreements over school content must somehow magically be federal issues, now the NSBA can back off and use patty cake, touchy-feely language to distance itself from its own avaricious mendacity. Quote, the message added that we deeply value not only the work of local school boards that make important contributions within our communities, but also the voices of parents who should and must continue to be heard when it comes to decisions about their children's education, health, and safety. End quote. Which is a far, far cry from the original, very specific, very alarmist message formed and agreed on by the NSBA and sent to the Biden administration. As Kirilenko notes, quote, NSBA requested that the administration employ appropriate enforceable actions against these crimes and acts of violence under the Gun-Free School Zones Act, the Patriot Act in regard to domestic terrorism, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, the Violent Interference with Federally Protected Rights Statute, the Conspiracy Against Rights Statute. End quote. Keepers of the constitutional flame might notice that only the last two of those that have been listed have any potential connection to the U.S. Constitution. Quote, NSBA specifically asked the president to mobilize such federal bodies against the parents as the U.S. Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Secret Service, and its National Threat Assessment Center. End quote. But many members of local school boards soon claimed that they had no idea that the NSBA was pushing this stuff. Kirilenko observes that 21 school boards publicly announced their disconnection from the letter. And now the association's backing off. Well, how convenient. It's a lot like a biased news agency releasing an inflammatory and untrue report on page 1 in big bold letters, then issuing an apology weeks later in tiny print, maybe in the obituary section. The harm has only just begun. Unless Attorney General Garland steps back from pressing the feds and their boots on local parents, and unless local taxpayers actually recognize that there are nothing but ethical and pedagogical problems arising from forcing people to pay for any level of education, the problem of politicized schooling and the political power wielders threatening dissidents will continue. After all, as Kirilenko notes, quote, the association further called on Biden to issue an executive order to enforce all applicable federal laws that would allow for the persecution of the extremist parents, end quote. Well, that was in their first letter. And that is one of the things that AG Garland used to trigger all this nonsense. And of course, we all know that if you don't agree with the people who wield the government cudgel, you, not the government, are an aggressive, extremist, terroristic threat. Right? Hey, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Remember, keep your spirits high. Keep spreading the word about our videos. Thank you so much for your comments as well. I always get to read them, and I get to comment on many of them, and I feel that I've got kindred spirits out there when I see your names popping up with all your great insights. We'll see you on YouTube. Please remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you on Rumble as well. Rumble, great site, Rumble. And of course, we'll see you at MRCTV.org. That's MRCTV.org. For MRC TV, be seeing you. I'm Gardner Goldsmith.